The sun hit Dustwater Creek like a hammer on hot iron, sending waves of heat rippling across the wooden sidewalks. A sudden, piercing scream cut through the midday haze, twisting the town's lazy rhythm into chaos. Emma Hawthorne crumpled in the dusty street, crimson blooming across her cotton blouse, soaking through with a terrifying immediacy. Merchants froze mid-step, children squealed and scattered, and the few townsfolk brave enough to stand still gawked in horrified silence. No one dared approach. Everyone, that is, except one man, Takoda, an Apache warrior with sinewy strength and eyes as sharp as obsidian, strode toward her without hesitation. His long black hair whipped around his face in the wind, catching flecks of dust and sunlight. Shirtless, his bronzed chest glistened with sweat, muscles taut like coiled ropes, every step deliberate, every movement controlled. He knelt beside Emma, inhaling the coppery scent of her blood, his heart tightening. This wasn't just injury, it was life hanging by a thread. Emma gasped, clutching his arm with trembling hands. "Please, they'll come back." Her voice was ragged, almost swallowed by the dust swirling around them. Takoda's gaze swept the street. Between the storefronts and overturned barrels, shadows moved menacing, purposeful. Whoever had done this wasn't finished. Without thinking, he tore a strip from his leather sash and pressed it to her wound. The fabric absorbed the blood quickly, but Takoda's steady hands radiated calm. He murmured, "Stay with me. Emma, you're going to make it." Her lips quivered as she tried to respond, her body racked with pain, but words failed her. Takoda's jaw tightened. Fear was useless here. Only action mattered. He scanned the street again. The town of Dustwater Creek was a fragile place, perched on the edge of law and anarchy, where greed and gunpowder dictated order. This street, where children played and merchants hawked their wares, had become a battlefield. The townsfolk whispered, shifting uneasily behind shuttered windows, as if daring the danger to claim them too. Emma's breathing hitched, shallow and rapid. Takoda adjusted the pressure on the wound, grimacing at the deep gash. The blood wouldn't stop without proper care, and he knew the nearest doctor was miles away. There wasn't time, not if whoever had done this returned with reinforcements. He needed a plan. And fast. Her hand curled around his white-knuckled. "It's the ledger. They can't find it?" Her words came in broken fragments. Takoda frowned. He had heard rumors of the Hawthorne family's secrets land deals, hidden accounts, and corrupt businessmen eager to erase anyone who got in their way. Emma's father had been a man of integrity, and now his daughter was paying the price. A faint thudding noise pulled Takoda's attention. Hooves. Someone was approaching fast. He glanced toward the horizon and saw the glint of metal catching the sunlight. He tightened his grip on Emma, shielding her with his body, muscles coiled like springs ready to strike. "Hold on," he muttered, more to himself than her. His mind raced, calculating options. The street offered little cover, but the alley beside the saloon might. He needed to move, and he needed to move now. Takoda gently lifted Emma into his arms, her weight surprisingly light despite her injuries. Her head lolled against his chest, hair damp with sweat and streaked with blood. Every step across the scorching planks was a battle against time. Dust rose in clouds around them, blending with the smell of gunpowder and sweat. Takoda's eyes never left the approaching threat, his senses alert to the faintest movement, the softest sound. Emma's whispered prayers filled the space between them, fragile threads of hope woven into the tension. They reached the alley, shadows swallowing them, hiding them from prying eyes. Takoda laid her gently against the rough wooden wall, still pressing the sash to her wound. She blinked up at him, pain and relief mingling in her wide green eyes. "You saved me," she breathed. "No," Takoda said firmly, voice low and steady. "We survive this. Together." The air between them was thick with dust, blood, and danger, but also a strange, unspoken bond. In that moment, he knew her life was tied to his own survival and that the storm coming for Dustwater Creek had only just begun. The alley behind the saloon was dim, shadows stretching like dark fingers across the wooden planks. Dust settled around them as Takoda pressed his leather sash harder against Emma's wound, the taste of copper thick in the air. Emma's breath came in ragged gasps, each exhale trembling with pain and fear. Takoda's eyes never left her face, scanning for movement, listening to every sound that could signal another threat. The town might look calm from a distance, but he knew better. Dustwater Creek was a nest of danger, and someone had painted a target on her back. "Takoda," Emma whispered, her voice faint but urgent. Her hand trembled as she reached for his forearm. "You need to know. It's not just me. It's the ledger." Takoda's brows knitted. He tightened his hold on the makeshift bandage. "The ledger?" he asked, voice low but commanding, keeping her calm while assessing her injury. They'll kill anyone who knows what's in it. My father, he tried to expose them years ago. Land thefts, shady dealings. The richest family in town. They'll stop at nothing." Her green eyes glistened with unshed tears, but there was steel in them, a fierce resolve that surprised him. Takoda adjusted his grip, keeping pressure steady. "We need to move. Now? You're bleeding too much to stay here." Emma tried to sit up but winced, pain shooting through her side. "I can't. Not far, too weak." "You'll make it," he said firmly. His voice was calm, like a steady river cutting through chaos. "I've carried people longer than this. You trust me?" Her lips quivered, but she nodded. "I have. No choice." Takoda scanned the alley. The saloon's swinging doors creaked as a shadow moved behind them. He stiffened, muscles coiled. Dustwater Creek had ears everywhere. Someone could be watching, waiting. He helped Emma to her feet, wrapping his arm around her like a human shield. Her head leaned against his chest, hair damp with sweat and blood streaks catching the sunlight that filtered in through cracks in the wooden walls. Step by careful step, he guided her toward the rear exit of the alley, eyes darting to every corner. He remembered the stories whispered among his tribe about the Hawthorne family. Emma's father had been a just man, challenging corruption wherever it festered. That courage had cost him his life, and now Emma paid the price. "Where are we going?" she asked, her voice trembling. "The old railroad station," Takoda replied. Abandoned, quiet, fewer eyes. The two moved with practiced silence. The town's dusty streets stretched out before them. Merchants shouted at passing wagons. The clip-clop of hooves echoed, and a breeze carried the scent of horse sweat, manure, and sun-baked wood. But none of it could mask the metallic tang of blood, and Takoda knew it would draw attention. Emma winced as they passed a sun-bleached boardwalk. "Takoda, I need to tell you about the people after me. They won't stop. Not until they have the ledger or until I'm gone." Her voice broke, but she forced herself on. "It's in my father's old cabin, hidden behind the false wall in the study. If they get it, they can ruin half the county." Takoda's jaw tightened. He hadn't expected this level of danger, but he was no stranger to threats. "Then we get you there first," he said. His hand brushed a bead of hair from her forehead, careful, protective. "I'll keep you alive, Emma. That's my promise." The alley opened into the empty stretch leading to the outskirts. Takoda's eyes flicked to the horizon. The sun had begun its slow descent, shadows stretching long across the town. Somewhere in the distance, a horse whinnied a warning. The night would make escape harder, but also give them cover. Emma leaned on him, each step a test of endurance. "Takoda, why are you helping me?" You don't even know me." He glanced down at her, expression unreadable. "Because no one should die like this, in the dust, alone. And because I recognize courage when I see it." Her lips pressed together in a weak smile. Takoda felt a surge of resolve. She was more than a wounded woman in the street. She was the key to something far larger, and he would face every danger to see her survive. Dustwater Creek had never seen anything like the storm that was coming, and Takoda would stand at the center of it, shielded by muscle, instinct, and honor. As the sun dipped behind the western hills, casting long streaks of orange and red across the town, the Apache and the injured woman pressed forward, shadows stretching behind them like dark wings. The real fight was only beginning. The night swallowed Dustwater Creek whole, turning the streets into a labyrinth of shadows. Takoda moved like a ghost, muscles coiled, senses on high alert. Emma's weight leaned against him, fragile yet determined, her breathing shallow, uneven. Every step through the darkened alleyways made Takoda's heart race. One wrong move, one careless shadow, and the enforcers hunting her could be upon them. "We can't stop," Takoda whispered, his voice low and steady, the only sound cutting through the silence of the empty town. Emma nodded, her pale face tight with pain, a bead of blood glinting in the moonlight along her temple. She winced as he adjusted his hold, careful not to jostle her wound. "I can make it," she murmured, but Takoda sensed the fatigue in her voice. They skirted past the saloon, where a lantern flickered in a second-floor window and a low murmur of voices hinted at watchful eyes. Takoda's instinct screamed caution. The town was alive with predators tonight. Dustwater Creek had never been quiet, but tonight the silence carried a weight heavier than any gunshot. "Hold on tight," Takoda said, ducking behind a stack of barrels. Moonlight caught on the iron tips of boots approaching the alley entrance. Shadows lengthened, revealing the silhouettes of two men-hired enforcers, no doubt, with the cruel precision of those who never missed a shot. Takoda's fingers brushed against the hilt of his knife, hidden beneath his sash. Emma's hand found his forearm, trembling. "Takoda, they're close." Her green eyes darted toward the intruders, panic threatening to overtake her. "Quiet," he said, pressing a finger to his lips. He waited, muscles tensed like drawn bowstrings, every sense attuned to the men's movements. The shadows passed without noticing them, unaware of the danger that lingered so close. Once the footsteps faded, Takoda exhaled softly and moved forward, guiding Emma along the back streets toward the abandoned railroad station at the edge of town. The night air was cool against their flushed skin, carrying the scent of wood smoke, manure, and dust. Takoda's mind worked furiously. The ledger Emma carried, or rather, what she hinted it contained, was the reason she was hunted. He had faced enemies before, but nothing like this. The stakes were more than money or revenge. This was survival, and he would see her through it. "Takoda, I never thought anyone would come for me," Emma whispered. Her voice was barely audible, lost in the hush of the night. "I thought I'd die alone in the streets." He glanced down at her, muscles straining as he helped her step over a fallen crate. "Not while I'm here," he said, his voice low and unwavering. "You survive. That's all that matters tonight." The railroad station loomed ahead, a skeleton of timber and iron, its roof sagging, windows darkened and broken. Takoda pushed the doors open with a creak that echoed through the stillness. Inside, the smell of dust and decay was thick, but safer than the streets outside. He lowered Emma to a bench made from splintered planks and carefully examined her wound again. Blood had soaked through the leather sash, but at least it wasn't worsening. Emma shivered, despite the warm night, her body trembling from shock, pain, and fear. "Why are you helping me?" she asked again, a question she had whispered earlier but now demanded an answer. Takoda's gaze was steady, unwavering. Because no one deserves to die like this, Emma. And because I've learned that sometimes, doing the right thing isn't about the law, it's about what you can live with. His fingers brushed a strand of hair from her face, careful not to touch her injury. For a few moments, silence stretched between them, filled only by the faint creak of the station's beams and the distant calls of owls. Then, a soft scuff of boots outside jolted them to alert. Takoda's muscles tensed again. Their enemies had found the trail. "We have to move again," he whispered, lifting her to her feet. Emma leaned heavily on him, trusting him completely. Together they stepped into the shadows, disappearing into the night like whispers of wind. The abandoned street stretched before them, a gauntlet of danger and uncertainty. But Takoda knew one thing. He would not let Emma fall, not tonight, not ever. The railroad station faded behind them, swallowed by darkness. Ahead lay the river crossing, the outskirts of town, and the unknown perils that awaited. Takoda's jaw tightened. The night had only just begun, and survival meant moving faster, thinking sharper, and trusting only each other. And so they vanished into the midnight streets, shadows entwined, hearts pounding, and the promise of a fight yet to come lingering in every step. The river stretched before them like a silver serpent under the pale glow of the rising moon. Its current roared and frothed over jagged rocks, carrying fallen branches that clashed against each other with harsh metallic sounds. Takoda paused at the bank, muscles tensed, eyes scanning every shadow along the opposite shore. Emma trembled in his arms, weakened from blood loss, yet her green eyes burned with determination. "Takoda, it's too wide." "Too fast," she whispered, voice quivering with fear. He set her gently on a flat rock at the river's edge and studied the water. "We don't have a choice. They'll be following, and staying here is death." His voice was calm but unwavering, steadying her with its certainty. He adjusted his grip on her arm and gestured to a shallower curve a few yards downstream. "There, that's our best chance." Emma nodded, teeth clenched, trying to summon courage she barely felt. "Will we make it?" Takoda's jaw tightened. "We will. Stay close. Hold on to me." He waded into the river first, the icy water lapping at his knees. Each step was deliberate, testing the current. His bare skin glistened in the moonlight, every muscle taut and coiled like a spring. Tribal jewelry adorned his chest and arms, beads catching the faint reflection of the water as he moved. Emma's hand gripped his forearm, her blood-stained blouse clinging to her body, and Takoda could feel her shivering against him. Halfway across, the current surged stronger, pulling at their legs with relentless force. Takoda planted his feet firmly against the riverbed, resisting the push of water that threatened to drag them downstream. Emma gasped, fear and exhaustion mingling in her wide eyes. He leaned low, using his shoulder to shield her from the strongest push of the water. Suddenly, a shout echoed from the opposite bank. Takoda's head snapped up, and he saw a lone figure on horseback, one of the enforcers hunting them. The man raised a rifle, its metal glinting in the moonlight. Takoda's mind raced, calculating distance, timing, and the speed of the current. He adjusted his hold on Emma, pressing her close. "Don't move until I tell you," he whispered, voice like iron. A shot rang out, the sound tearing through the night. Water splashed around them as Takoda twisted to shield her. The bullet missed by inches, striking the river with a sharp hiss. Takoda's grip tightened. "We're almost there." "Keep your head down." Emma's heart pounded against his chest, each beat echoing the fear and adrenaline coursing through them. She had trusted him from the moment he had knelt beside her in the street, but now the stakes were higher than ever. Takoda, sensing her panic, murmured softly, "You're stronger than you think. Emma, just a little farther." Step by step, Takoda guided her through the frigid torrent. The river tried to claim them, but his strength and resolve outweighed the force of the water. The enforcer fired again, the rifle's crack reverberating across the canyon walls. But Takoda moved like a shadow, weaving, twisting, protecting her with every ounce of his being. Finally, they reached the opposite bank, Takoda's boots sinking into the soft, wet earth. He gently lowered Emma to the ground, brushing water from her face and hair. Her legs trembled, but she was safe for now. He scanned the river one last time, ensuring the enforcer had no clear shot. Emma looked up at him, her face pale but resolute. I didn't think we'd make it," she whispered, voice trembling with relief. Takoda's dark eyes softened slightly. "We make it through, Emma. Together, always." He helped her to her feet, supporting her as they moved into the cover of nearby trees and rocks. The moonlight illuminated their path, but the shadows were long, and the threat was far from over. Ahead lay the forested outskirts of Dustwater Creek, where hiding spots and narrow trails offered some hope of escape. But Takoda knew the enforcers would not give up. They would track them relentlessly. His mind sharpened, planning the next move: protect Emma, deliver her to safety, and ensure the ledger never fell into the wrong hands. The river was behind them, a dangerous obstacle conquered, but the night stretched ahead, full of peril. Takoda tightened his grip on her arm, muscles coiled and ready, and whispered, "Keep close." "We're not safe yet," Emma nodded, trusting him completely. And for the first time since the attack, a small flicker of hope kindled in her chest. The trading post smelled of dust, leather, and dried herbs, a faint haze of smoke lingering from a hearth long cold. Takoda guided Emma inside, her steps unsteady, her blouse still stained with dried blood. The creaking wooden floorboards echoed beneath them, and the flickering lanterns threw the shadows of barrels and shelves into jagged, shifting shapes. For the first time since their escape, Emma allowed herself a moment to breathe, leaning heavily against Takoda. "Thank you," she whispered, voice hoarse. I don't know how we made it this far." Takoda's dark eyes scanned the room, every muscle coiled and alert. "We're not safe yet. Stay close to me and don't make a sound." His hand rested lightly on the hilt of his knife. Hidden beneath his sash, the beads and feathers of his tribal jewelry catching the dim lantern light. He had learned early in life that danger could appear in the most ordinary places. They found a corner of the trading post shielded by stacks of burlap sacks and crates. Emma sank to the floor, wincing as Takoda pressed a damp cloth to her wound. "This will hold for now," he murmured, adjusting the leather sash to keep the pressure steady. Her face was pale, and she shivered, not just from pain but from fear of the unknown. "Takoda?" she whispered, glancing around nervously. "I can help. I know some tricks about this town. Maybe I can keep them off our trail." Takoda's jaw tightened. He knew her knowledge could be a weapon, but relying on it was risky. "We do this together," he said. "You follow my lead and we survive." For a few tense minutes, the trading post remained quiet, save for the occasional scuff of a boot outside. Then a familiar voice cut through the air. Well, what do we have here?" Emma's eyes widened in shock. One of her old acquaintances, a wiry man named Harris, stepped from the shadows, smirk twisting his face. "I should have guessed you'd show up here, girl," he sneered. "But it seems you've brought company." Takoda rose slowly, positioning himself between Emma and the man. Muscles tensed, his protective stance unwavering. "Step back," he said, voice low and commanding. Harris chuckled, producing a small whistle. The sound echoed through the trading post, and moments later, several armed men appeared at the doorway, rifles ready. Takoda's eyes narrowed. Betrayal had come from within, and now they were trapped. Emma pressed herself against him, fear and anger mingling in her gaze. "I trusted him," she whispered. Trust is earned, Takoda said grimly. His hand tightened on the knife hilt. And it's about to cost them dearly. The first shots rang out, splintering wood and sending dust into the air. Takoda moved like a shadow, blocking the bullets with calculated dives and swift twists, protecting Emma as he advanced. Beads on his tribal jewelry clinked softly with each movement, a subtle rhythm in the chaos. He grabbed the heavy crate, swinging it at one of the men, sending him sprawling. Emma watched, all mingling with fear, as the Apache warrior became an unstoppable force, his strength and precision unmatched. A second wave of attackers tried to flank him, but Takoda anticipated every move, blocking, dodging, striking, guiding Emma behind cover. Stay down, he commanded, pressing her behind a stack of barrels. Her eyes were wide, but she obeyed, clutching the ledger's location in her mind as tightly as she clutched his arm. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the remaining men fled, wounded or terrified. Dust hung thick in the air, mixing with the metallic scent of blood. Takoda's chest heaved, muscles taut but ready for more if necessary. Emma's hand found his arm, trembling. You saved me again, she whispered, green eyes glistening in the dim light. Takoda's dark gaze softened slightly. We're not done yet. This town won't give up, and neither will they. But we survive, Emma. That's all that matters. Outside, the wind howled through the deserted streets, carrying the distant echo of hooves and voices. Dustwater Creek might have thought the night had ended, but for Emma and Takoda, the fight was far from over. And as she rested against him, she realized that survival, courage, and trust were now bound together in ways she could never have imagined. The canyon stretched before them, rugged cliffs rising like silent sentinels under the waning moon. Takoda led Emma along the narrow trail, every muscle coiled, senses alert. The river behind them shimmered faintly in the night, a reminder of the dangers they had already conquered. Emma leaned heavily on him, her blouse still stained with dried blood, eyes scanning the shadows. This place. It's dangerous, she whispered, voice trembling with exhaustion. Takoda's dark eyes scanned the canyon walls, alert to any movement. Danger is everywhere. Here, at least, we have cover. We can plan our next move. His hand rested lightly on her shoulder, steadying her. The beads and feathers of his tribal jewelry caught the pale moonlight, glinting with each subtle motion. They reached a small overhang, where rocks provided some shelter from the wind. Takoda helped Emma sit, carefully adjusting the leather sash to press against her wound. She winced, but he was precise, his hand steady. This will hold for a while, he said. We rest, then move again. Emma looked at him, exhaustion and awe mingling in her green eyes. You've saved me more than once, Takoda. Why? You don't even know me. He studied her for a moment, jaw tight, then spoke softly. I know enough. Courage, resilience, survival. You have all of that. And I know that no one deserves to die hunted and alone. She swallowed, nodding. I know the ledger. It's hidden in my father's cabin. If they get it... Her voice faltered and she shivered, both from pain and fear. Takoda's eyes hardened. We can't let that happen. Tonight, we plan. Tomorrow, we strike. But first, you recover. Hours passed as Emma rested, leaning against the canyon wall while Takoda moved silently among the rocks. He inspected the path, studied the shadows, and set crude traps to delay any pursuers. His instincts were razor-sharp, every detail scrutinized, loose rocks, faint footprints, the way the moonlight cut across the canyon floor. He was preparing not just for defense, but for the perfect opportunity to turn the tables. When Emma finally stirred, her voice weak but determined, she said, I want to help. I know this canyon, its hidden trails. I can guide us through. Takoda nodded, a flicker of respect in his dark eyes. We moved together. But listen closely. Every misstep could cost us everything. The wind howled through the canyon, carrying the scent of dust, pine, and distant danger. Takoda crouched low beside Emma, demonstrating how to move silently among the rocks, how to blend with the shadows, how to listen. She followed, wincing with every step but matching his pace. Every movement strengthened their bond. Every whisper of instruction became a thread of trust. Hours later, they reached a narrow ridge overlooking the town. Takoda motioned for Emma to stay low. From his vantage point, they could see the movement in Dustwater Creek, lanterns swinging in windows, shadows flitting across streets, horses tethered, guards patrolling. Takoda's jaw tightened. Their enemies were organized, relentless, and unaware of the traps he had set. They won't expect us here, he murmured. Tomorrow, we turn the hunt around. We take the ledger and we end this. Emma looked at him, awe and trust mingling in her gaze. I believe you, Takoda. I trust you with my life. He gave her a brief nod, then glanced toward the horizon. The moon dipped low, casting long shadows across the canyon. Takoda's mind was already mapping the next steps, the approach to the cabin, the escape routes, and the traps that would protect them. Every detail mattered. As the first light of dawn painted the canyon walls in pale gold. Takoda crouched beside Emma, hand resting on hers. Rest now. Soon the storm begins, and for the first time Emma allowed herself a glimmer of hope. With Takoda by her side, she might not only survive but strike back. The first light of dawn crept over Dustwater Creek, spilling gold across the weathered rooftops. Takoda crouched in the shadows of the canyon's edge, muscles coiled, eyes sharp as obsidian. Emma leaned against him, pale but resolute, her blood-stained blouse clinging to her frail frame. Ahead lay her father's cabin, the final piece of the puzzle and the location of the ledger that could expose the corruption that had hunted her mercilessly. We move now, Takoda whispered, voice low and commanding. We get the ledger, and we end this, Emma nodded, swallowing her fear. She had followed him through rivers, alleys, and canyons, surviving betrayals and bullets. She trusted him completely. Let's finish it, she said, her green eyes burning with determination. They slipped through the shadows, approaching the cabin from a narrow, hidden trail Takoda had identified during their escape. Every muscle in his body was alert, every sense tuned to danger. The cabin looked abandoned, silent under the early morning sun, but Takoda knew better. Those hunting Emma were clever, and they would have expected her to return. Takoda signaled for Emma to stay low, and they moved in unison, silent as wind. His long black hair whipped around his face, beads and feathers glinting faintly, giving him the aura of a shadowed guardian. Emma followed, clutching the memory of the ledger's hidden location in her mind. Inside the cabin, the air was stale, filled with dust and the faint scent of pine. Takoda guided her to the study, where a false wall concealed the ledger. Emma's hands trembled as she pressed against the hidden panel, sliding it open to reveal the bundle of papers carefully preserved. Relief washed over her, but there was no time to celebrate. Takoda's keen eyes caught movement in the doorway figures emerging, guns raised. They followed us, he muttered, muscles coiling. Takoda moved like a living shadow, blocking Emma with his body, guiding her behind overturned furniture. Bullets splintered wood, dust and debris filling the air. Emma's heart pounded as she watched him maneuver, his protective stance unwavering. Each movement was precise, a testament to strength honed by years of survival. Emma, stay down. He barked, ducking a shot. She pressed herself to the floor, clutching the ledger tightly. The attackers surged, but Takoda was unstoppable. He used his weight and skill to disarm one man, sending him crashing into a stack of crates. Another lunged, but Takoda's fist struck with brutal force, knocking the rifle from his grasp. His long black hair swung with every movement, tribal jewelry clinking softly like a heartbeat in the chaos. Emma watched, awestruck, as the Apache warrior protected her with unmatched courage. The intruders faltered, realizing they were outmatched, and fled into the morning light. Takoda didn't chase them. His priority was her safety and the ledger in her hands. She rose shakily, holding the bundle close. "We did it," she whispered, tears of relief streaming down her face. Takoda's dark eyes softened, and he placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "We survive, Emma. That's all that matters. Now the town will see the truth." The sun rose higher, illuminating Dustwater Creek in golden light. Emma and Takoda stepped from the cabin, weary but triumphant. The ledger would reveal corruption, greed, and betrayal. But thanks to their courage and trust, justice had a chance. Emma looked at him, gratitude and admiration in her gaze. "I couldn't have done this without you." He gave a faint nod, muscles still coiled, senses alert. "You did most of it, Emma. I only guided you through the storm." As they walked toward the town, ready to confront those who had hunted her, a sense of peace settled over them. The Apache warrior had not only saved her life, but had restored hope, courage, and the possibility of justice in a world that had seemed merciless. And in that moment, amidst the dawn of a new day in Dustwater Creek, Emma Hawthorne realized that survival, trust, and courage were not just words, they were a lifeline, bound by the unwavering strength of Takoda, the Apache warrior who had risked everything to ensure she lived. The battle was over, but the story of their bravery would echo through the town for years to come. And Takoda, muscular and fierce, long black hair and tribal jewelry gleaming in the sunlight, remained a shadowed protector, the man who had turned the tide and carried a woman from death to triumph.